Well, I got a bone to pick like roses.
That's a good question.
I ain't feeling broken
Hardcore.
no more.
I would say he was a brother.
I'd probably say joyful.
He was consistent.
Joy.
I would have to say genuine.
Brother.
Noah was very dependable.
I would describe him as a brother to me.
Genuine.
Tweed in one word I think would be real.
Tweed in one word, it would be trustworthy. I could always count on him to have my back. He always made time for me, even with our busy schedules.
Selfless. He was just that guy, you know. He did for people when he didn't have to.
If I had to describe Tweed in one word, it would probably be the sexiest man alive.
Certainly I got to know Noah through Boys State and was reintroduced to him to come back and be a part of our Boys State staff. And then that led to a relationship that was second to none. So I got to know the man, Noah Tweed. I got to know what he was thinking, what his heart was all about, and was privileged to do that. And very seldom does that happen for me. And so I love Noah, and I'm going to miss Noah.
Whenever he moved to Wren, we weren't friends at first, and then when we started going to church together, that's when we immediately became best friends. And we hung out all the time doing dumb things. Growing up together, we always would try to see how many dumb things we could get ourselves into without getting caught, whether that was sneaking out of the house to try to go get on top of the middle school or climbing a massive light post at the football stadium. Yeah, we were always doing everything together.
He was a great friend, obviously, but I learned a lot from him. He was really a big teacher for me. There's not a lot of people in my life I can really say that about, but he's definitely at the top of that list. And really, I'm just trying to continue to really live like him and carry on that legacy of his generosity and his love and value of friendship and stuff like that.
It wasn't until this summer when I started working at Kanga and getting on Boys State production staff that I got to actually meet him and get closer with him and become one of his friends. And I have gotten to see him over the summer a handful of times performing, doing DJ things, and just hanging out and having a good time. And he always had a big presence in a room because he brought a lot of joy and a lot of light there. So it was an amazing friendship, and I was honored to get to call him my friend.
Anytime things got bad, he always knew the right thing to say or what to do just by the way he lived his own life and like how he treated other people.
Hey Will, this one's for you, buddy. Oh, that might have been wet. Oh.
So me and Tweed started becoming friends, I would say, in middle school. It was kind of like the trio. It was me, Tweed, and Sawyer. And from 6th grade to 12th grade, it was every other week we'd be hanging out with each other. It was just like this bond, and I just felt like they were my brothers. But Tweed, as a person in general, just every time I talked to him, I just knew that I had a true friend. And I was going through a really hard time in high school. I felt like I didn't have a lot of girlfriends, and I just felt like no matter what, it was always going to be the trio. And as long as I had them, I just knew like I could conquer anything. And he meant the world to me. And he meant the world to so many other people. And I just love that kid.
Noah wasn't just a cousin to me, he was like a second brother. I loved him just as much as my brother. I loved him unbelievable amounts. He was always there whenever I felt like I had nobody else to go to, and I could always count on him to keep my secrets if I needed him to, or just rant about anything.
Definitely just had a good positive impact on me in just terms of my outlook, the way I view things. He always had a good outlook on the way to go about his day-to-day life, and definitely something that'll forever stay with me.
He was really just wanting to get involved, which is really cool. He came by, he was willing to do anything, and really where I got to know him most was every morning when he came back a year later, was working with us in our new warehouse, shipping out orders every morning. He and I would probably spend the first 15 minutes of every day just catching up, and he was genuinely just a real guy that we could talk about good things in life, bad things in life, and you know, he was just a good guy to have around, always had a smile and always wanted to make sure that everybody around him had one too.
He was one of my best friends. I told him pretty much everything, so he knew everything about me.
He was my go-to person, first person I would call for anything, whether it was bad news or good news. I would always call him first.
He's a pretty real guy. There wasn't a lot of things that he held back or pretended about himself. He knew who he was and who he wanted to be, basically. So he was pretty real.
There was a period of time where we would all just sit on the balcony outside on this porch. We would hang out and listen to music, and just like, no one knew who he was, and he showed that to everybody else.
Tell what we're doing. You see me and you, we ain't that different. I struck the fuck out and then I came back swinging. Take my time to finish, mind my business. A life ain't a life till you live it. I was digging me a hole.
Yeah, so here's the deal about Noah. Most of you know this. If you don't, he's a shoe freak. I mean, the kid loves shoes. And he's a watch guy. He loves watches. And so one night we were at the apartment just having heart to heart, and he started talking about his shoe collection. And I said, well, let me show you my shoe collection. And so I did, and some way, somehow, I don't know how this happened, but he walked out of my closet with a pair of boots that were absolutely my favorite pair of boots, and he conned me out of them. And he walked out of my apartment wearing my favorite pair of boots, and I was fine with that until the door shut, and then I got mad as hell, going, how did I just give him my favorite pair of boots? So when I talked to him about it to bring him back, there was no way I was ever going to see those boots on my feet again. So good for him for conning me out of my shoes. At the same time he was doing that, he was looking at some of my watches. And I don't know how he conned me out of one of my watches, but he did. I don't regret that because I didn't wear the watch that much, but he was in love with it and he was going to wear it. So I said, good for him. But I want those boots back.
Pretty recently, I guess it was about 3 weeks ago, I got COVID. And I had just gotten over it, and I had no money, no gas. I had just enough money and gas to get out and make money to have food that night. And Tweed texted me, he said, hey man, I got a gig in Clemson tonight. Do you want to come out to it? So I explained the situation to him, and he's like, man, I don't care. I'll send you some money. I just want you to get out here. And he was always doing stuff like that, you know. He just never really had to, you know. He was putting himself out just so I could be there and hang out with him, and that really meant a lot to me.
So at Boys State over the summer, in between assemblies, Tweed was running over his music, still messing with stuff on the board in the back, and I walked in, and you know, he was super lit, you know, getting everyone active. And so I came in, and there was only a few people in there just waiting and listening, and I just started dancing. I ran down. He was loving the energy, so he just kept going. He was mixing, having a lot of fun. And I sat there on the stage and danced for probably about 30 minutes, just listening to him and just screaming up at him, and he was screaming back down at me, and it was a lot of fun. And I think that really speaks to the amount of joy that he can bring to someone, but also have with himself when he was doing what he loved.
One night I got off work really late and he stayed up until like 3:30 waiting for me to get off, and so we could go through his clothes because the next day he was moving out. And by the end of it, I had a pile of clothes in my hand of just his, walking my little trail back to my apartment.
So I have like so many stories. Like I could go on, I don't know. I think probably one story that really sticks out to me would be, I remember sophomore year of high school, he had just started at ACE. It was like his first week or two. And, you know, here and there I'd always like check on him, like make sure he was doing okay. And one night I decided to bring him dinner, so he wanted Taco Bell. So I pull up, I drop the Taco Bell off at the counter, and he wanted a large Baja Blast. And I set it down on the counter, and he goes to give me a hug, and he spills the Baja Blast like all over the counter. And all the customers and employees are looking at us like we were crazy. And I thought I was gonna get him fired that day, but honestly, the best part about it was that we just couldn't stop laughing once it happened. Like, it was just one of those instances that pretty much sums up our relationship. He was just a big goofball, and that's what I love most about him.
For Noah's spring break, we took him on a cruise, and as soon as we got on the ship, he noticed how low the ceilings were, and that means that the exit signs were even lower than normal exit signs. So we were walking down the hall, and he just stops and says, "I wonder if I could hit this with my forehead." So he walked up to it, and bang, he hit it, and it ended up cutting him right around here. And he had to walk around and take pictures the entire trip with that giant cut on his forehead.
I think one of the funniest stories to me was him and his door. He always had this thing where when he shut his door, it would never be latched all the way. And I have a dog, and he likes to figure out when doors are open. So we worked very different schedules. When I would go off to work in the morning, he was, sometimes still getting back. I would go, and my dog would hang out in the living room, and he would oftentimes push the door open and go snuggle up next to Tweed when he had no idea. And he would wake up a lot of mornings with my dog either right beside the bed or even in the bed with him, licking his face and waking him up. And no matter how many times it happened, he could never figure out how to fully get that door latched. And that would just always crack me up every morning, going out and getting ready and finding my dog climbed up in bed with him. And that'll always stick with me.
One of my favorite stories was he texted me on a random Friday and told me to put my cowboy boots on because he was taking me to a concert. And right before the concert, like a couple hours before, we were texting, and he told me that this would be the perfect opportunity for him to propose. And I said, "Oh my gosh, that'd be such a great way for us to fake an engagement." And he said, "There will be no faking." And so he actually got on one knee on the lawn towards the end of the concert and gave me a full proposal with a ring that he stole off of my hand. I'm going to miss always confusing people and our late night elaborate wedding planning.
All right, my favorite Tweed story has to be when we decided to put custom shipping cards into every single package that was sent out, where everyone would custom sign it and had a little special note at the end. Tweed put "follow me" on SoundCloud, and he ran it by me beforehand, like, "Hey, can I put this on here?" I'm like, "Yeah, go for it, man. Like, that'd actually be a great promotion or whatever." We're starting to get all these customer service requests, like, "Where's Noah's SoundCloud?" We couldn't find it anywhere. And next thing we know, we're bringing it up to him while we're shipping orders. He's like, "Dude, isn't it so funny? Like, I don't even have a SoundCloud." I don't know why he didn't have a SoundCloud, because he was a DJ, and it would have been incredible promotion, but the fact that he didn't have a SoundCloud, he was more proud of that than, I guess, missing the opportunity to grow the DJ mixed business, but I think he grew it non just through communication rather than, it was word of mouth marketing for that guy. It wasn't digital presence, and I mean, he was the word around town in the ambassador program, I can tell you that much.
So, New Year's Eve, Noah threw a party, and I went over there, and we were having a good time playing beer pong, and one of his random neighbors came and decided to steal one of Noah's neon signs in his living room. And Noah realized it was missing, so we chased down the kid, me, Sawyer, Jake, Noah, and Johnny. And I'll just say the kid didn't make it out. He got knocked out, but that was a funny story from one time. Cut that last part for sure.
When we went to senior week together, right after high school, we all got very intoxicated, and someone brought out their beard trimmers, and we were like, dude, let's give each other lines in our hair. And I was the one who came up with this idea, I think, but so I was giving people lines, and they were not bad but not good, and then I realized that it was my turn to get my lines in my hair, and Tweed insisted on him doing it, which we all thought was a good idea. And as soon as he started touching my hair with the trimmers, I knew that it was gonna be bad, but we didn't care. We thought it was funny. And then when he got done with the masterpiece, I don't even know what design it was in my head, but it was pretty bad. He really messed me up, really bad. He really messed me up. And after that, I had to go home and show my mom and my girlfriend my artwork by Tweed on my head, and that's something that I'll never forget.
A good story that I have about Tweed. I don't think everyone knows this story, but everyone at this funeral is about to know it. We took a guy's trip to Nashville. And it was me and Tweed and Sawyer and then a couple other guys in the group. It was a pretty sizable group. And we went to Nashville, we got an Airbnb, and on the first night we decided that we wanted to go downtown and all hang out. And so it was COVID during this time too, so naturally we get downtown and there's not a lot going on because of COVID. So we had a pretty good time, and then we ate, and then we all got back in the Uber and we're headed back. And little did I know that Tweed had struck up quite the conversation with our Uber driver, and had learned some things about him that I didn't know. So we get back to the Airbnb and we're all pretty tired, so we all go to bed around, I think, 1 in the morning. And then at about 2:30 in the morning, all of the lights in my room are on, and I hear a lot of people kind of giggling and talking in my room, and I'm very confused because I've just woken up, and I hear like these girls' voices that are very unfamiliar to me because, you know, this was a guy's trip, so I'm like, oh, well, why are there girls here? So my first thought was that maybe they had just met some random girls on Tinder or something and thought it would be funny to have them show up. So then I start to wake up, and I roll over, and it is not 2 Tinder girls. It is a wide, diverse range of plus-size strippers that Noah had so kindly ordered for me. And so I woke up pretty distraught, and I, of course, got mad and told everyone to get out. And so basically, come to find out, Noah had become friends with this Uber driver, found out that this Uber driver was essentially, what would you call it, a pimp, I guess, and had these strippers. And so he ordered them, and he said his only request to the strippers was to wake Jake up. And that is what they did. So that's probably the best story I have about Tweed.
Come on. Hot, sicker than your average. Papa twist cabbage off instinct. Don't think, stink, pink gators. My Detroit players. Tim's for my hooligans in Brooklyn. That's dead right. If the head right, Biggie there, and night. Papa been smooth since days of under rules. Never lose, never choose to. Bruise, cruise, who? Do something to us. Talk, go through us. Girls walk to us, wanna do us, screw us. Who us? Yeah, Papa and Pump. Close like Starsky and Hutch. Stick to clutch. Yeah, I squeeze 3 at your cherry M3. Bang every MC easily. Take that. Recently, Brian ain't saying nothing, so I just speak my peace, keep my peace. Cubans with the Jesus peace, with my peace. Packing, asking who want it, you got it, I flaunt it. That Brooklyn, we on it.
Can't you see? Sometimes your words just hypnotize me, and I just love your flashy ways. I guess that's why I wrote in your soul. Biggie, 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 can't you see? Sometimes your words just hypnotize me, and I just love your flashy ways. I guess that's why I wrote in your soul.
Oh, well, hello there. Are you ready to watch the solar eclipse?
Lexus LX 4.5 bulletproof glass tips. If I want some, gon' blast squeeze first. Ask questions last. That's how most of these so-called gangsters pack.